LiberalViewer presents.
So, welcome to the December 20th edition of LiberalViewer Sunday Live Clip Roundup. Thanks for joining me. I've picked out 33 of the weekend's best clips for what should be a really informative show for you all tonight. As usual, my clips come mostly from the Sunday morning news analysis shows from the Big Five corporate outlets of ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, and Fox News, the so-called corporate media here in the United States. You can see the main topics I'm covering listed down in the video description. And if you're watching the recorded version of the show, you should see time indexes down there so you can skip to the topic that most interests you if you don't want to watch all the topics. And whether you're watching the show live or as a recorded show, I guess not as a live show, but as a recorded show, I'll put a link down in the video description to my clip list in order of the 33 clips I'm using. You can try to decode the sometimes cryptic notes from my list of clip notes there. Sorry I didn't have time to put it up for the live show. It's been kind of a rush again this week. As for the topics I'm covering, it's almost all on the 2016 presidential campaign, both the Republican side and lots of coverage on the Democratic side this week because last night there was a Democratic debate. And I'm going to do a sort of mini debate clip roundup since I did 18 clips from the Republican debate on Tuesday that I did in a roundup on Wednesday. Now I should be doing, I think it's 10 clips from last night's debate as part of my 33 clips I'll be showing you this morning. And that's going to be my first topic, and then I'll get to the Republican side, and there'll be some transitional clips where the Republicans talk about the Democrats or the Democrats talk about the Republicans. But before I get to that, I want to start with a good political comedy clip from the last episode of Saturday Night Live for 2015. The last political comedy clip I'll have until January 15th and 16th when Bill Maher and Saturday Night Live come back to non-repeat broadcasts. The cold open for Saturday Night Live last night was probably the best part of the show, and it was a parody of the Republican debate from last Tuesday. And I especially liked the return of Darrell Hammond to play Donald Trump, who was definitely the best Donald Trump, I think, from the Saturday Night Live cast. And you can see him parodying Donald Trump with Bennett, I think, is the name of the guy who plays Jeb Bush, and it's parody of the fight between Jeb Bush and Donald Trump at the last debate. And I'll talk about that a little more if you watch that clip over here.
Like Jeb's got his courage back up. He's ready to take another run at Trump. Mr. Bush, go ahead and say out loud what you've been quietly muttering to yourself.
Trump? I mean, this guy's the chaos candidate? Am I right? Chaos? Is he for real? Nah, man.
Jeb, you're a very nice man, but you're basically a little girl. Folks, this is true. I got hold of Jeb's birth certificate and full disclosure. His real name is Jebra.
That is not true.
That is true. Yes, it is. Jebra. Jebra.
That's not my name. That's not my name.
Hey, Jebra, losers say what?
What? Oh.
All right.
So yeah, that was the Saturday Night Live parody of the Republican debate and sort of the juvenile name-calling and insults that were going on, especially between Jeb Bush and Donald Trump. And I'll have a clip, both of Jeb Bush and Donald Trump, later in the program, in the last topic I'm going to cover when I get to the Republicans. But first, like I said, I want to do 10 clips from the Democratic debate last night. Lots of Bernie Sanders, lots of Hillary Clinton. I think there's just one clip of Martin O'Malley somewhere in the middle here. And I'm going to do these in chronological order. I think when you're doing a debate clip roundup, it's best to take them in the order they came in the debate because sometimes they build on each other and sometimes candidates are more tired at the end of the debate. And you can see, or they loosen up by the end of the debate. Anyway, this is the very beginning of the debate first then, where Bernie Sanders actually apologized to Hillary Clinton for this data breach. I don't know if you heard about that. I'll have some reporting on that a little later in the program, but basically the Democratic National Committee is providing voter data to all the Democratic candidates, and they were letting the candidates see each other's data, and some Bernie Sanders people looked at some of the data from Hillary Clinton's campaign, which is why Bernie Sanders started off the debate apologizing to Hillary Clinton, and you can see how Hillary Clinton reacts to that in this clip.
You mentioned the DNC, the vendor, but you said of your staff that they did the wrong thing.
Absolutely.
So does Secretary Clinton deserve an apology tonight?
Yes, I apologize.
Secretary Clinton, do you accept?
Not only do I apologize to Secretary Clinton, and I hope we can work together on an independent investigation from day one, I want to apologize to my supporters. This is not the type of campaign that we run. And if I find anybody else involved in this, they will also be fired.
Secretary Clinton, he's apologized. How do you react?
I very much appreciate that comment, Bernie. It really is important that we go forward on this. I know that you now have your data back and that there has been an agreement for an independent inquiry into what did happen. Obviously, we were distressed when we learned of it because we've worked very hard.
Political the DNC, the vendor, but you said of your staff that they did the wrong thing.
Absolutely.
So does Secretary Clinton deserve an apology tonight?
Yes, I apologize.
Secretary Clinton, do you accept?
Not only do I apologize to Secretary Clinton, and I hope we can work together on an independent investigation from day one, I want to apologize to my supporters. This is not the type of campaign that we run. And if I find anybody else involved in this, they will also be fired.
Secretary Clinton, he's apologized. How do you react?
I very much appreciate that comment, Bernie. It really is important that we go forward on this. I know that you now have your data back and that there has been an agreement for an independent inquiry into what did happen. Obviously, we were distressed when we learned of it because we've worked very hard. I said in the beginning of this campaign, we wanted to reach as many voters as possible, and we have tens of thousands of volunteers doing that and entering data all the time to keep up with what people are telling us. And so now that I think, we've resolved your data, we've agreed on an independent inquiry, we should move on, because I don't think the American people are all that interested in this. I think they're more interested in what we have to say about all the big issues facing us.
Yeah, David, look, for crying out loud, our country has been attacked.
Sorry, there's a little hiccup in the middle of that clip where it started over because I was trying to check the next clip and I restarted it by mistake. I apologize for that, but the next clip that I almost started by mistake there begins with former Maryland Governor Martin O'Malley attacking both Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton on the gun issue. There's just a little bit of his clip. I actually thought his contribution was fairly irrelevant to the debates, and then you'll see how both Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton react to the attacks on the gun issue from Martin O'Malley over in this clip.
Flip-flopping political approach of Washington that both of my two colleagues on this stage have represented there for the last 40 years. We need common sense.
Let's calm down a little bit, Martin.
Yeah, let's tell the truth, Martin.
I am telling the truth.
Let's maybe have some rules here, commentators.
We will.
All right.
And let me just establish that for you, Senator, really quickly. Governor, we are going to call on you tonight. It's very clear you have a lot to say, but please wait until you're called upon. And Senator, he invoked your record,
sure,
and I'll let you respond.
Invoked mine
and
as
we'll
well.
get to you too as well.
Secretary. All right. For a start, we can do all the great speeches we want, but you ain't going to succeed unless there is a consensus.
Right.
In 1988, just to set the record straight, Governor, I ran for the U.S. House. We have one House member from Vermont, 3 candidates in the race. One candidate said, you know what? I don't think it's a great idea that we sell automatic weapons in this country that are used by the military to kill people very rapidly. Gun people said there were 3 candidates in the race. You vote for one of the others, but not Bernie Sanders. I lost that election by 3 percentage points, quite likely for that reason. So please, do not explain to me, coming from a state where Democratic governors and Republican governors have supported virtually no gun control. Excuse me. Do not tell me that I have not shown courage in standing up to the gun people, in voting to ban assault weapons, voting for instant background checks, voting to end the gun show loophole, and now in a position to create a consensus in America on gun safety.
Senator, thank you. I want to move on here. Secretary Clinton, you brought up Donald Trump a short time ago.
I do, and this is an important issue, and I know we'll get to a lot of other critical ones as well. I actually agree with Governor O'Malley about the need for common sense gun safety measures, and I applaud his record in Maryland. I just wish he wouldn't misrepresent mine. I have been for the Brady bill. I have been against assault weapons. I have voted not to give gun makers and sellers immunity. And I also know that, and I'm glad to see this, Senator Sanders has really moved in face of the facts about what we're confronting in our country. I know that he has said in the 2 previous debates that he wants to take on this immunity issue because we need to send a strong message to the gun manufacturers, to the sellers, to the gun lobby. And I would hope, Senator Sanders, that you would join the Democrats who are trying to close the Charleston loophole, that you would sponsor or co-sponsor legislation to remove the absolute immunity. We need to move on this consensus that exists in the country.
Good.
It's no longer enough just to say the vast majority of Americans want common sense gun safety measures, including gun owners. We need, and only the 3 of us will do this. Nobody on the Republican side will even admit there's a problem. And in whatever way the 3 of us can, we need to move this agenda forward and begin to deal with the gun lobby and the intimidation that they present.
Secretary Clinton, thank you. We're going to.
So you can see there that Martin O'Malley did not really get very far with his attacks on the gun issue. And I thought both Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton had good answers on that issue. And I also thought Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders both had good answers on the issue of Donald Trump, that Donald Trump came up several times in the Democratic debate last night. And first you'll hear Hillary Clinton talk about the bigotry and bluster of Trump, and then she actually makes this charge. It may be sort of like giving Trump a dose of his own medicine, because she talks about how ISIS recruiters are using Trump video to, video of Trump's anti-Muslim statements to recruit ISIS members, and there's no real evidence of that. You'll see in some of the news reports I show a little later. And I actually think Bernie Sanders' follow-up to what Hillary Clinton says about Trump is even more effective in talking about why Trump has the appeal that he does and how to defeat that appeal over in this clip.
We've now seen the polling done well after his proposed ban on Muslims coming to America. 36% of Americans, more than a third, agree with him. You have weighed in already on Donald Trump. You've weighed in on the proposed ban. But what would you say to the millions of Americans watching tonight who agree with him? Are they wrong?
Well, I think a lot of people are understandably reacting out of fear and anxiety about what they're seeing. First, what they saw in Paris, now what they have seen in San Bernardino. And Mr. Trump has a great capacity to use bluster and bigotry to inflame people and to make them think there are easy answers to very complex questions. So what I would say is, number one, we need to be united against the threats that we face. We need to have everybody in our country focused on watching what happens and reporting it if it's suspicious, reporting what you hear, making sure that Muslim Americans don't feel left out or marginalized at the very moment when we need their help. I was a senator from New York after 9/11, and we spent countless hours trying to figure out how to protect the city and the state from perhaps additional attacks. One of the best things that was done, and George W. Bush did this, and I give him credit, was to reach out to Muslim Americans and say, we're in this together. You are not our adversary. You are our partner. And we also need to make sure that the really discriminatory messages that Trump is sending around the world don't fall on receptive ears. He is becoming ISIS's best recruiter. They are going to people showing videos of Donald Trump insulting Islam and Muslims in order to recruit more radical jihadists. So I want to explain why this is not in America's interest to react with this kind of fear and respond to this sort of bigotry.
Secretary, thank you. Senator Sanders, I did want to ask you you about a neighbor in San Bernardino who reportedly witnessed packages being delivered to that couple's home, that it set off red flags, but they didn't report it because they were afraid to profile. What would you say to Americans afraid to profile? Is it ever acceptable?
Well, the answer is obviously, if you see suspicious activity, you report it. That's the kind of a no-brainer. You know, if somebody is loading guns and ammunition into a house, I think it's a good idea to call 911. Do it.
But I'm asking about profiling because a lot of people are afraid of that.
I want to talk about something else, because Secretary Clinton, I think, made some interesting and good points. What you have now is a very dangerous moment in American history. Secretary is right. Our people are fearful. They are anxious on a number of levels. They are anxious about international terrorism and the possibility of another attack in America. We all understand that. But you know what else they're anxious about? They're anxious about the fact that they are working incredibly long hours. They're worried about their kids, and they're seeing all the new income and wealth, virtually all of it, going to the top 1%. And they're looking around them, and they're looking at Washington, and they're saying the rich are getting much richer, I'm getting poorer. What are you going to do about it? What are you going to do for my kids? And somebody like a Trump comes along and says, I know the answers. The answer is that all of the Mexicans, they're criminals and rapists. We got to hate the Mexicans. Those are your enemies. We hate all the Muslims because all of the Muslims are terrorists. We got to hate the Muslims. Meanwhile, the rich get richer. So what I say to those people who go to Donald Trump's rallies, understand, he thinks a low minimum wage in America is a good idea. He thinks low wages are a good idea. I believe we stand together to address the real issues facing this country, not allow them to divide us by race or where we come from. Let's create an America that works for all of us, not the handful on top.
Senator, thank you.
So, despite Hillary Clinton giving a good answer there, I thought Bernie Sanders' answer was a little bit better because it brought in the whole economic inequality argument that is really the main theme of his campaign, and tied it to Donald Trump's bigotry as a way to deceive people. You know, that's an old argument about how race resentment is used to stop people in the lower classes from resenting people in the upper class. It's sort of like a bait and switch, makes them feel like they're superior to someone even though they're getting screwed by the rich, basically, in this case, which is what Bernie Sanders was saying. You can let me know if you think that's a good argument down in the comment section. I see I have over 100 live viewers, and I appreciate all of you who've joined the live show. I'm going to move on to this next clip, which is on the issue of encryption. This is a question that Martha Raddatz asked Hillary Clinton, and I think that Martha Raddatz actually assumed that there was encryption used by the attackers in the Paris attack, and there was some talk of that, but I don't think that's ever actually been proven. And then Hillary Clinton gives this answer where she seems to be in favor of encryption, but she admits she doesn't really understand it, and then there's kind of this weird double entendre thing that I may or may not discuss to see if you can spot it yourself over in this clip.
No, not yet, Governor O'Malley. I'll come to you when we call on you. Thank you very much.
Share that.
You'll be happy. I'll let you talk then. Secretary.
Oh, sorry, and I thought Martha Raddatz did a really good job at the beginning of this clip of taking control of Martin O'Malley. I think she showed that she was pretty dominant as the moderator and got Martin O'Malley to pipe down. And he tried this a couple times to like interject, and I didn't think he did very well at it. And anyway, but sorry, I forgot to mention that was the beginning of this clip.
No, not yet, Governor O'Malley. I'll come to you when we call on you. Thank you very much.
Share that.
You'll be happy. I'll let you talk then. Secretary Clinton, I want to talk about a new terrorist tool used in the Paris attacks, encryption. FBI Director James Comey says terrorists can hold secret communications which law enforcement cannot get to even with a court order. You've talked a lot about bringing tech leaders and government officials together, but Apple CEO Tim Cook said removing encryption tools from our products altogether would only hurt law-abiding citizens who rely on us to protect their data. So would you force him to give law enforcement a key to encrypted technology by making it law?
I would not want to go to that point. I would hope that given the extraordinary capacities that the tech community has and the legitimate needs and questions from law enforcement, that there could be a Manhattan-like project, something that would bring the government and the tech communities together to see they're not adversaries. They've got to be partners. It doesn't do anybody any good if terrorists can move toward encrypted communication that no law enforcement agency can break into before or after. There must be some way. I don't know enough about the technology, Martha, to be able to say what it is, but I have a lot of confidence in our tech experts. And maybe the back door is the wrong door, and I understand what Apple and others are saying about that. But I also understand when a law enforcement official charged with the responsibility of preventing attacks, to go back to our early questions, how do we prevent attacks? Well, if we can't know what someone is planning, we are going to have to rely on the neighbor or, the member of the mosque or the teacher, somebody to see something. I just think there's got to be a way, and I would hope that our tech companies would work with government to figure that out. Otherwise, law enforcement is blind. Blind before, blind during, and unfortunately, in many instances, blind after. So we always have to balance liberty and security, privacy and safety. But I know that law enforcement needs the tools to keep us safe, and that's what I hope there can be some understanding and cooperation to achieve.
And Governor...
I don't know. I did not really have confidence from that answer that Hillary Clinton has a good understanding of encryption and how encryption works, and my confidence was not increased by her claim that maybe the back door is the wrong door, but I don't know. You can let me know what you think down in the comments section about that whole encryption debate. I'm sure some of my viewers know a lot more about encryption than I do, and certainly more than Hillary Clinton does, apparently. The next clip I want to show is another Martha Raddatz question, this one to Bernie Sanders, where there was this big split between Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton on whether U.S. ground troops at all would be necessary to fight ISIS in Iraq and Syria, and also whether we needed to fight ISIS before or at the same time as trying to take Assad out. Bashar al-Assad is the leader of Syria. And this is the first clip I'm going to show on that. This is actually where Martha Raddatz tries to get Bernie Sanders to say what his plan B will be if the Muslim troops he wants to fight ISIS can't do it. And he brings up some points, some ways that we have leverage that we don't use against some of those local Arab countries. And you can see that over here.
The ground should not be American troops. They should be Muslim troops. I believe that countries like Saudi Arabia and Qatar have got to step up to the plate, have got to contribute the money that we need and the troops that we need to destroy ISIS with American support.
The administration has tried that over and over again. If it doesn't work and this threat is so great, what's your plan B?
My plan is to make it work, to tell Saudi Arabia that instead of going to war in Yemen, they, one of the wealthiest countries on earth, are going to have to go to war against ISIS. To tell Qatar that instead of spending $200 billion on the World Cup, maybe they should pay attention to ISIS, which is at their doorstep.
Secretary Clinton,
I thought that was a pretty good talking point there about Saudi Arabia spending all this money in Yemen, which is their proxy war with Iran, and they need to spend some of that fighting ISIS, and then Qatar spending all that money to get the World Cup. They could spend some money and some resources fighting ISIS. But that, like I said, that wasn't really the main point of contention between Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders. It was really on whether to fight ISIS first and put taking Assad out till later, or whether to do both at the same time. And Hillary Clinton tried to obfuscate the difference for a while, but it really kind of came out in this back and forth. Actually, this goes on for about 5 minutes, I think, but you have to see it in its entirety. Actually, it's followed by like a almost 4-minute clip that is on the same subject, so I did cut it into 2 pieces. It could have gone for 8 or 9 minutes, but here's 5 minutes of a really good argument back and forth between Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton that shows you their differences on how to fight ISIS and then whether or not to take on Assad over in this clip.
With Secretary Clinton on this. Our differences are fairly deep on this issue. We disagreed on the war in Iraq. We both listened to the information from Bush and Cheney. I voted against the war. But I think, and I say this with due respect, that I worry too much that Secretary Clinton is too much into regime change and a little bit too aggressive without knowing what the unintended consequences might be. Yes, we could get rid of Saddam Hussein, but that destabilized the entire region. Yes, we could get rid of Gaddafi, a terrible dictator, but that created a vacuum for ISIS. Yes, we could get rid of Assad tomorrow, but that would create another political vacuum that would benefit ISIS. So I think, yeah, regime change is easy. Getting rid of dictators is easy. But before you do that, you got to think about what happens the day after. And in my view, what we need to do is put together broad coalitions to understand that we're not going to have a political vacuum filled by terrorists, that in fact we are going to move steadily and maybe slowly toward democratic societies. In terms of Assad, a terrible dictator. But I think in Syria, the primary focus now must be on destroying ISIS and working over the years to get rid of Assad. That's the secondary issue.
But
Senator,
that is exactly what I just said and what I just described.
Yeah, but Secretary
and that
Clinton,
is important
Secretary
because
Clinton.
now we have a UN Security Council that will enable us to do that. And, you know, with all due respect, Senator, you voted for regime change with respect to Libya. You joined the Senate in voting to get rid of Gaddafi, and you asked that there be a Security Council validation of that with a resolution. All of these are very difficult issues. I know that. I've been dealing with them for a long time. And of course, we have to continue to do what is necessary when someone like Gaddafi, a despot with American blood on his hands, is overturned. But I'll tell you what would have happened if we had not joined with our European partners and our Arab partners to assist the people in Libya. You would be looking at now the Libyans are turning their attention to try to dislodge ISIS from its foothold and began to try to move together to have a unified nation.
No, I was not the Secretary of State.
Senator Sanders, hold on one moment, please. I'm going to ask the Secretary here because there does appear to be some daylight here between the policies, at least in respect to when you take out Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. Right now, or do you wait? Do you tackle ISIS first? You have said, Secretary Clinton, that you come to the conclusion that we have to proceed on both fronts at once. We heard from the Senator just this week that we must put aside the issue of how quickly we get rid of Assad and come together with countries including Russia and Iran to destroy ISIS first. Is he wrong?
I think we're missing the point here. We are doing both at the same time.
But that's what he's saying. We should put that aside for now and go after ISIS.
Well, I don't agree with that because we will not get the support on the ground in Syria to dislodge ISIS if the fighters there who are not associated with ISIS but whose principal goal is getting rid of Assad don't believe there is a political diplomatic channel that is ongoing. We now have that. We have the UN Security Council adopting a resolution that lays out a transition path. It's very important we operate on both at the same time. And let me just say a word about coalition building, because I've heard Senator Sanders say this. I know how hard it is to build coalitions. I think it would be a grave mistake to ask for any more Iranian troops inside Syria. That is like asking the arsonist to come and pour more gas on the fire. The Iranians getting more of a presence in Syria, linking with Hezbollah, their proxy in Lebanon, would threaten Israel and would make it more difficult for us to move on a path to have a transition that at some point would deal with Assad's future.
I happen to think.
Senator Sanders?
Look,
she says we have to proceed on both fronts at once.
Secretary Clinton is right. This is a complicated issue. I don't think anyone has a magical solution. But this is what I do believe. Yes, of course, Assad is a terrible dictator. But I think we have got to get our foreign policies and our priorities right. It is not Assad who is attacking the United States. It is ISIS. And ISIS is attacking France and attacking Russian airliners. The major priority right now in terms of our foreign and military policy should be the destruction of ISIS. And I think we bring together that broad coalition, including Russia, to help us destroy ISIS and work on a timetable to get rid of Assad, hopefully through democratic elections. First priority, destroy ISIS.
Senator Sanders, thank you.
So I thought that back and forth did a pretty good job of showing the differences between Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton on fighting ISIS versus getting rid of Assad. And I actually would have stopped there, except in this continuation of that clip, first there you can see Martin O'Malley gets booed by trying to say that he's a new generation at the, and this is right where I left off that last clip. This is where the next clip starts with Martin O'Malley giving his ideas on ISIS, and after saying he's a new generation, not stuck in Cold War thinking about who's wearing, the Russian jersey and who's wearing the American jersey, et cetera, et cetera. The reason I decided I needed to keep this clip is there's some Hillary Clinton and some Bernie Sanders, and in Hillary Clinton's response to Martin O'Malley, she says something like, "We are where we need to be in our Syria strategy now." And she's kind of referring to the recent UN resolution against ISIS. And in context, it didn't really seem that strange, at least not to me. I didn't even think I was going to take this clip. But over on Fox News Sunday, they spent a significant part of the show focusing on this one phrase that Hillary Clinton uses in this next clip about "we are where we want to be," and several Republican candidates also pounced on that. I think I have maybe Christie talking about it, or maybe I don't have that clip. But anyway, this is the continuation of that previous clip. First, Martin O'Malley gets booed for pointing out that he's a new generation, and then both Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders talk a little bit more about their strategy for fighting ISIS in Syria over in this clip.
Generation's perspective on this.
Governor O'Malley?
During the Cold War, we got into a bad habit of always looking to see who was wearing the jersey of the communists and who was wearing the U.S. jersey. We got into a bad habit of creating big bureaucracies, old methodologies to undermine regimes that were not friendly to the United States. Look what we did in Iran with Mossadegh, and look at the results that we're still dealing with because of that. I would suggest to you that we need to leave the Cold War behind us, and we need to put together new alliances and new approaches to dealing with this, and we need to restrain ourselves. I mean, I know Secretary Clinton was gleeful when Gaddafi was torn apart. And the world, no doubt, is a better place without him. But look, we didn't know what was happening next. And we fell into the same trap with Assad, saying, as if it's our job to say, Assad must go. We have a role to play in this world, but we need to leave the Cold War and that sort of antiquated thinking behind us.
You criticized Secretary Clinton for what came next. What's your proposal for what comes after Assad?
I believe that we need to focus on destroying ISIL. That is the clear and present danger. And I believe that we can springboard off of this new UN resolution. And we should create, as Secretary Clinton indicated, and I agree with that there should be a political process. But we shouldn't be the ones declaring that Assad must go. Where did it ever say in the Constitution, where is it written it is the job of the United States of America or its Secretary of State to determine when dictators have to go? We have a role to play in this world, but it is not the role of traveling the world looking for new monsters to destroy. We need to protect
Secretary Clinton.
Since he has been making all kinds of comments, I think it's fair to say Assad has killed, by last count, about 250,000 Syrians. The reason we are in the mess we're in, that ISIS has the territory it has, is because of Assad. I advocated arming the moderate opposition back in the day when I was still Secretary of State, because I worried we would end up exactly where we are now. And so when we look at these complex problems, I wish it could be either or. I wish we could say, yes, let's go destroy ISIS and let's let Assad continue to destroy Syria, which creates more terrorists, more extremists by the minute. No, we now finally are where we need to be. We have a strategy and a commitment to go after ISIS, which is a danger to us as well as the region.
Secretary,
and we finally have a UN Security Council resolution bringing the world together to go after a political transition in Syria. If the United States does not lead, there is not another leader. There is a vacuum, and we have to lead if we're going to be successful.
Senator Saunders, please, go ahead. Senator Saunders, the last word on this.
The United States must lead, but the United States is not the policeman of the world. The United States must not be involved in perpetual warfare in the Middle East. The United States, at the same time, cannot successfully fight Assad and ISIS. ISIS now is the major priority. Let's get rid of Assad later. Let's have a democratic Syria. But the first task is to bring countries together to destroy ISIS.
Senator Sanders, thank you. When we come back here tonight, the other major issue.
So, like I said, there wasn't that much new information in there, but there was that one phrase Hillary Clinton used about we are where we want to be with ISIS. So we have the strategy, we have the commitment, the UN resolution, and in the context of that clip, it didn't seem that out of place, but they really pounced on it on Fox News Sunday, and the Republicans, as I'll show in a little bit. But I'm still showing four more clips from last night's debate. First, this minute from the debate. Actually, this is chronologically what happened next, if you don't count the banter between Jonathan Karl and George Stephanopoulos in between. They had quite a lengthy break there for the candidates, I thought, but somehow when they came back and the debate was supposed to start, Hillary Clinton wasn't there, and they started without her, and then she came on stage. They never really explained this, but here's this weird minute from the debate last night here.
As you can see, we have a packed audience here in New Hampshire, and we're going to continue. We've already had a spirited conversation here at the top of the broadcast about ISIS, about concerns of terror here on the home front, and as we await Secretary Clinton backstage here, we're going to begin on the economy. We want to turn to the American jobs, wages, and raises in this country. And do we believe Secretary Clinton will be coming around the corner any minute? But in the meantime, we want to start with this eye-opening number. And Senator Sanders, this question goes to you first anyway. In 1995, the median American household income was $52,600 in today's money. This year, it's $53,600. That's 20 more years on the job with just a 2% raise. In a similar time frame, raises for CEOs up more than 200%.
Sorry.
We're going to continue here, and Secretary, you'll get a chance on this too. But
well, that was kind of weird. I don't know exactly what that was about. There was this moment in a previous debate where Hillary Clinton was late getting back, and she said, you know, it takes longer for women in the bathroom, or it became some sort of like feminist statement, and I don't know what that was about, if that was some sort of statement or some sort of like expression of power, or it just maybe something happened backstage that delayed her so she couldn't get out there in time. Who knows? I tried to find some reporting on it, and I can't find anyone explaining why it was that Hillary Clinton came back late, but it was kind of weird that they started anyway, but it didn't last that long, so it didn't end up really being that important, but it was just weird. The next clip I want to show is another example, I think, where Hillary Clinton had a good answer and then Bernie Sanders followed with a better answer, kind of like on that Donald Trump issue where Hillary Clinton had that fairly good answer about his bluster and bigotry, and then Bernie Sanders came on and actually talked about why it was dangerous and it was a misdirection so that people who are getting screwed over by the rich don't blame it on the rich, or they are given scapegoats to look at instead. Well, in this clip, it's talking about the question of corporate America and whether Hillary Clinton is too close to Wall Street, and you'll see Hillary Clinton actually has a pretty good answer, a pretty confident answer, but then I think Bernie Sanders has a better answer over in this clip.
In a moment, but Secretary Clinton, I did want to ask you, the last time you ran for president, Fortune magazine put you on its cover with the headline, "Business Loves Hillary," pointing out your support for many CEOs in corporate America. I'm curious, 8 years later, should corporate America love Hillary Clinton?
Everybody should. Said I want to be the president for the struggling, the striving, and the successful. I want to make sure the wealthy pay their fair share, which they have not been doing. I want the Buffett rule to be in effect, where millionaires have to pay 30% tax rates instead of 10% to nothing in some cases. I want to make sure we rein in the excessive use of political power to feather the nest and support the super wealthy. But I also want to create jobs, and I want to be a partner with the private sector. I'm particularly keen on creating jobs in small business. My dad was a small businessman, a really small business. I want to do more to help incentivize and create more small businesses. So if people who are in the private sector know what I stand for, it's what I fought for as a senator, it's what I will do as president, and they want to be part of, once again, building our economy so it works for everybody, more power to them, because they are the kind of business leaders who understand that if we don't get the American economy moving and growing, we're not going to recognize our country, and we're not going to give our kids the same opportunities that we had.
Secretary, thank you. Senator Sanders, I want to stay on this and ask you, how big a role does corporate America play in a healthy economy, and will corporate America love a President Sanders?
No, I think they won't. So Hillary and I have a difference. The CEOs of large multinationals may like Hillary. They ain't going to like me, and Wall Street is going to like me even less. And the reason for that is we've got to deal with the elephant in the room, which is the greed, recklessness, and illegal behavior on Wall Street. When you have 6 financial institutions in this country that issue 2/3 of the credit cards and 1/3 of the mortgages, when 3 out of 4 of them are larger today than when we bailed them out because they are too big to fail. We have got to reestablish Glass-Steagall. We have got to break the large financial institutions up. So I don't think, having said that, I don't think I'm going to get a whole lot of campaign contributions from Wall Street. I don't have a super PAC. I don't want campaign contributions from corporate America. And let me be clear. While there are some great corporations creating jobs and trying to do the right thing, in my view, and I say this very seriously, the greed of the billionaire class, the greed of Wall Street is destroying this economy and is destroying the lives of millions of Americans. We need an economy that works for the middle class, not just a handful of billionaires, and I will fight and lead to make that happen.
Senator, thank you. I want to take this question to Governor.
So another good answer from Senator Bernie Sanders. I thought his answers were better than Hillary Clinton's. I've read some analysis that basically called the debate a tie between Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders. I don't think anyone gave it to Martin O'Malley. And then I've even read some analysis that says, since it was a tie, Hillary Clinton wins. I didn't really have a chance to read too much analysis since I spent most of my time preparing this show for y'all to watch. But I'm going to show you one more clip from the debate last night. It's actually Hillary Clinton's closing statement. And I only chose hers because there are a couple things that I thought were worth noting in her closing statement. This closing statement, like a lot of her answers in the debate last night, weren't really geared for the Democratic base or the Democratic primaries. She was already gearing up for the general election, and I think this concluding statement is more of a general election argument than a primary argument. One thing I like about it at the beginning is she explains what the difference is between Democrats and Republicans. A lot of the people who comment on my videos seem to think that the Democratic Party and the Republican Party are basically the same. It doesn't matter, who wins between Democrats and Republicans. They're like the one corporate party, or I read all the comments on my videos, so I see it all the time. Here you can see Hillary Clinton actually explain some policy differences between Democrats and Republicans. And then also at the end of her closing statement and it was the end of the entire debate, you'll see she made a kind of interesting choice. She did not say "God bless America" as a lot of politicians like to end these type of statements. Instead, she said something a little different, as you can see over here.
On January 20th, 2017, the next president of the United States will walk into the White House. If, heaven forbid, that next president is a Republican, I think it's pretty clear we know what will happen. A lot of the rights that have been won over years, from women's rights to voter rights to gay rights to worker rights, will be at risk. Social Security, which Republicans call a Ponzi scheme, may face privatization. Our vets may see the VA hospital that needs to be improved and made better for them turned over to privatization. Planned Parenthood will be defunded. The list goes on because the differences are so stark. Everybody says every election's important, and there's truth to that. This is a watershed election. I know how important it is that we have a Democrat succeed President Obama in the White House. And I will do all that I can in this campaign to reach out and explain what I stand for and what I will do as president. I became a grandmother 15 months ago, and so I spent a lot of time thinking about my granddaughter's future. But as president, I will spend even more time thinking about the futures of all the kids and the grandchildren in this country, because I want to make sure every single child has a chance to live up to his or her God-given potential. If you will join me in this campaign, we will make that a mission. Thank you, good night, and may the force be with you.
Thank you to the candidates tonight.
May the force be with you. That's kind of an interesting way to end the debate. I guess the new Star Wars movie did just premiere. I don't know if any of you have seen it. I haven't seen it yet. I have tickets to see it in IMAX 3D on Friday. I have a tradition, as a non-Christian, I have a tradition of going and seeing popular movies on Christmas Day. And so the last 3 Christmases, I've gone out and seen the last 3 Hobbit movies. And this Christmas, it'll be Star Wars The Force Awakens, so no spoilers down in the comment section, because I'm reading your comments along the way. That's probably just an invitation to spoilers, but whatever. I'm going to move on now. That was the last clip from the debate. Now I'm going to move on to the actual Sunday morning shows, and first I want to show a couple reports on the debate that I just chose my own clips from. First, the most balanced reporting I thought on it, or at least compared to the Fox News reporting I'm going to show next, came from ABC, which hosted the debate. This is the report from ABC reporter Jonathan Karl, basically talking about the debate and a few other political developments in the 2016 race over in this clip.
Into this debate, the Democratic race was engulfed with allegations that the Sanders campaign stole voter data from Hillary Clinton's campaign. Bernie Sanders offered a quick apology for that before all the candidates turned their attention to their mutual enemy, Donald Trump.
Last night's debate started with a surprise, a mea culpa from Bernie Sanders.
Not only do I apologize to Secretary Clinton, I want to apologize to my supporters. This is not the type of campaign that we run.
I very much appreciate that comment, Bernie. We should move on, because I don't think the American people are all that interested in this.
Throughout the night, Clinton and Sanders sparred on foreign policy.
If the United States does not lead, there is not another leader. There is a vacuum.
The United States is not the policeman of the world. The United States must not be involved in perpetual warfare in the Middle East.
And on the economy and Wall Street.
Should corporate America love Hillary Clinton?
Everybody should.
And will corporate America love a President Sanders?
No, I think they won't. The CEOs of large multinationals may like Hillary. They ain't going to like me, and Wall Street is going to like me even less.
Martin O'Malley called out both Sanders and Clinton on gun control.
Senator Sanders voted against even research dollars to look into this public health issue. We need common sense.
Let's calm down a little bit, Martin. Do not tell me that I have not shown courage in standing up to the gun people.
While this debate featured the sharpest attacks between the Democrats, all three trained their fire on one man, GOP frontrunner Donald Trump.
We must never surrender our American values to racists, must never surrender them to the fascist pleas of billionaires with big mouths.
And somebody like a Trump comes along and says, I know the answers. The answer is that all of the Mexicans, they're criminals and rapists. We hate all the Muslims because all of the Muslims are terrorists.
He is becoming ISIS's best recruiter. They are going to people showing videos of Donald Trump insulting Islam and Muslims in order to recruit more radical jihadists.
As you heard, an explosive allegation from Hillary Clinton against Donald Trump, saying that ISIS is showing videos of Trump to recruit potential new jihadists. We asked the Clinton campaign where they got that from. They have not offered, George, any direct evidence that that has happened. Donald Trump, for his part overnight, tweeted simply, Hillary Clinton lied.
Okay, John, Karl, thanks very much. Let's talk to Mr. Trump.
So I'll have more of Donald Trump's reaction to that charge from Hillary Clinton a little bit later. But I want to compare that report from ABC, which actually hosted the debate, to the report from Ed Henry over on Fox News Sunday, first with an introduction from Chris Wallace, the host of Fox News Sunday, promising that Carly Fiorina will give her response to the debate. That sounds like it will be a real objective look at the debate, but as I think in this clip they do talk about that one phrase that Hillary Clinton used about how we are where we want to be on our strategy with ISIS. It was definitely in the first minute of Fox News Sunday where they introduce, the topics they're going to talk about. And I think it's in this clip, and then, of course, Carly Fiorina will talk about it in the clip I show next. But first, here's Chris Wallace introducing Carly Fiorina, going to Ed Henry on his report on last night's debate, which also talks about how Trump dominated the debate. They never really talk about, well, maybe they do, that Hillary Clinton's dominates the Republican debate as a topic also. But anyway, Trump dominated the debate, and this is the Fox News reporting on that here.
The Democrats held their final debate of the year last night. We'll get reaction from Republican presidential candidate Carly Fiorina, who's a Clinton critic, in a moment. But first, let's bring in Ed Henry, who has the debate highlights live from Manchester, New Hampshire. Ed.
Well, Chris, it's unlikely very many people were watching because in a move that critics say coddles Hillary Clinton, the frontrunner, the Democratic Party yet again scheduled a big Democratic debate late on a Saturday night, this time right before Christmas. So when Clinton said that the rising cost of Obamacare is simply just because of glitches, she's unlikely to take a lot of heat. And on the key issue of battling ISIS and terror, that clip you just played where she said we are where we need to be in terms of a strategy, her staff quickly clarified that she meant the UN resolution to get a political solution in Syria, but there could be damage from that in a general election. And it was interesting that all three of the Democratic candidates slammed the Republican frontrunner Donald Trump, a sign that he's dominating the debates on both sides.
Mr. Trump has a great capacity to use bluster and bigotry to inflame people. He is becoming ISIS's best recruiter.
Secretary Clinton is too much into regime change and a little bit too aggressive without knowing what the unintended consequences might be. Yes, we could get rid of Assad tomorrow, but that would create another political vacuum that would benefit ISIS.
We need to focus on destroying ISIL. But we shouldn't be the ones declaring that Assad must go.
Now, on that fiery issue that popped up about 24 hours before this debate about aides to Bernie Sanders peeking into a Democratic voter database and trying to get access and apparently getting some access to the Clinton playbook, Sanders apologized and quickly moved on, even though there had been all this hype that he might take the gloves off and there'd be a big fight about it. It was a reminder, very similar to the first Democratic debate in Las Vegas, where Clinton said he didn't care about, where Sanders said he didn't care about the Clinton emails, even though they're under FBI that criminal investigation. The bottom line is the latest Fox poll shows Clinton beating Sanders by 22 points nationally. But let's not forget, at this same point in 2007, a Washington Post ABC News poll found Clinton was winning by 29 points over a young senator named Barack Obama. Chris?
Ed Henry reporting.
I noticed how Ed Henry threw in that whole thing about how Hillary Clinton's emails are under federal criminal investigation. I don't even think that's exactly true, but you notice how they focused on that one clip that Ed Henry said they had just showed. Like I said, it was in the first minute of Fox News Sunday. They showed that clip of Hillary Clinton saying, "We are where we need to be on Syria." And they never showed the whole context like I showed in the 3-minute whatever clip I showed a few minutes ago. But they did give a very softball question to Carly Fiorina on that topic. You'll see Chris Wallace say, "So what do you think about Hillary Clinton saying that we are where we need to be on Syria? Come on, what do you think? What do you think?" That's what if you look at my clip notes, and I haven't put that link down in the video description, sorry, to the PDF of my clip notes, but I definitely, usually my question and answer clip notes are either framed as the questioner versus the guest, or the questioner tease the guest, like tee with an at, like tease up a question as a softball question. And this is definitely a softball question from Chris Wallace to Carly Fiorina on this topic they obsessed on Fox News Sunday about how Hillary Clinton said we are where we need to be on Syria over here.
On exactly that comment that we've referenced a couple of times, Hillary Clinton in the debate saying we are now where we need to be in fighting ISIS. Your reaction?
Incredible, honestly. Somehow a UN resolution about Syria puts us where we need to be. I think it is a reflection of Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama's belief that our foreign policy gets set by others. This is what leading from behind means, I guess. She failed to mention in last night's debate that her agreement with a precipitous withdrawal and declaration of victory in 2011 helped leave swaths of territory and weaponry from ISIS. She failed to mention that she described Bashar al-Assad as a positive reformer and opened an American embassy. She failed to mention a complete failure strategy in Libya, which now is enabling ISIS to move into Libya. She's gotten every single foreign policy challenge wrong. And no, Mrs. Clinton, we are not where we need to be in the fight against ISIS.
Clinton also
So yeah, definitely Fox News obsessed on this one statement Hillary Clinton made, although I guess a little bit to Fox News's credit, they did let a Democrat, Adam Schiff, a Democratic member of Congress who was on Fox News Sunday, they gave him the chance to defend Hillary Clinton on this, although they introduced him as a critic of Obama's foreign policy and policy on Syria and fighting ISIS. And Adam Schiff is a critic of the Obama administration policy, but even he didn't criticize what Hillary Clinton said, maybe because, maybe because of the good chance that she's going to be the next president of the United States while he's still going to be in Congress, and he doesn't want to antagonize the next president from his party. But anyway, here's Adam Schiff defending Hillary Clinton's use of the phrase "we are where we need to be" in the debate last night here.
Discussing this morning Hillary Clinton in last night's debate saying we are now where we need to be in the fight against ISIS.
Well, this was in the context of, do we go after Assad or do we go after ISIS? Can we do both? And her answer is basically we need to do both. And now for the first time we have a political process at the United Nations that ought to bring about an end to both. And I think she's right. I think it isn't enough to leave Assad in place, because as long as he is there, there is going to be a recruiting magnet for ISIS.
But Congressman, there's no agreement. I mean, yes, they're talking about we're going to have talks, but the Russians have not backed off Assad, and the Iranians have not backed off Assad.
No, you're absolutely right. But the first step has got to be sitting around the table and agreeing to a process to get to the end result. The Russians are going to come to that conclusion, Chris. I think they're coming to that conclusion as we speak, because the facts on the ground are not improving at the pace they thought they would, notwithstanding all of their indiscriminate bombing, notwithstanding all the negotiation with the Iranians. They are making very little progress on the ground. So that conflict now, I think, is posing a real problem and albatross for Putin. So he is going to be looking for a resolution. The Iranians are the tough ones to persuade. But at the end of the day, unless Iran and Russia want to have a rump Alawite state and a rump Sunni state and a Kurdish state, then they're going to have to come to the table and bring about an end to this regime.
You criticized President.
So, like I said, at least Fox News Sunday did give Adam Schiff a chance to put Hillary Clinton's comment in context. I want to move on to the last three clips that are just on the Democratic side of the 2016 presidential race. These next three clips are all of Senator Bernie Sanders did follow-up interviews on a couple of the Sunday morning news shows, both on ABC and This Week with George Stephanopoulos and over on NBC's Meet the Press. This first clip is from Meet the Press, and Hillary Clinton did not do any of the Sunday morning news shows. She had a couple surrogates out there, John Podesta, and then her communications secretary, what's her name? Is it Jennifer Palmieri? Something like that. I may not have that name exactly right, but I didn't take any clips from her surrogates. But I do have three clips from Senator Bernie Sanders, since he not only was at the debate last night, but then did these two shows. In this first clip, he sort of expands on what he was saying about fighting ISIS and not going after Assad. Chuck Todd actually asked him if we'd be better off if Saddam Hussein and Muammar Gaddafi and also Bashar al-Assad, with them in power, does that leave us better off? And he at least says we'd be more stable. And pay attention to what he says here, because it's kind of similar to something I'll show Donald Trump saying a little later in the program. And there are a couple of similarities between Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump's foreign policy regarding ISIS and Syria that I'll discuss a little later in the program, starting with what Bernie Sanders says in this clip as a basis for that comparison. This, like I said, is from NBC's Meet the Press this morning. Here.
You said something else in here that caught my eye. You were talking about, look, we could get rid of Saddam Hussein, but that destabilized an entire region. We could get rid of Gaddafi, a terrible dictator, but that created a vacuum for ISIS. And we could get rid of Assad tomorrow, but that would create another political vacuum. Let me ask you this. Would the Middle East be more stable today with Saddam, Gaddafi, and Assad all sort of strong men in charge?
Well, the answer is all three of those guys are terrible dictators. And the goal is through a democratic process to get rid of terrible dictators. But the truth, the simple answer to your question is, I think, yes, the region would be much more stable. The point here is that it is easy for a major power like the United States to get rid of somebody like Saddam Hussein. But the reason I opposed the war in Iraq is I worried very much about the destabilization in the region and what would happen the day after. And sadly, many of the concerns that I had turned out to be right. Similarly, in Libya, Gaddafi, terrible dictator, gotten rid of. Right now, ISIS is gaining ground in Libya because of all of the destabilization in the region and all of the turmoil. So I think what you need is coalitions, broad coalitions, to work together to create a process by which we remove people or through democratic change.
Well, but the problem, as Secretary Clinton pointed out, is that ISIS and a lot of the people that you want in this coalition, Arab boots on the ground rather than U.S. boots on the ground, they're more concerned with Assad than they are ISIS. And if our priority isn't to get rid of Assad, they won't join this coalition. Isn't that the catch-22 here, sir?
Look, I mean, that's a fair point, and no one denies this is a complicated issue. But here is my point. What American leadership is about is to put as much pressure as we can, and we have the leverage to do that. We have the leverage to bring countries together, to demand that they overcome their differences, because right now, the crisis facing this world is international terrorism. It is ISIS. Assad, I want to see him go. But that is a secondary issue compared to the destruction of ISIS.
All right, I'll move on to another topic.
So I think that added a little more nuance to what Senator Bernie Sanders said last night in the debate, although I've already shown something like 8 or 9 minutes worth of back and forth on ISIS in Syria between Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton, with a little bit of Martin O'Malley thrown in there. I do want to show a little clarification from Bernie Sanders on the issue that started the debate about the vendor that the Democratic National Committee was using to let the different presidential campaigns use voter data, and how there was some sort of data breach. And I already showed the report from ABC's John Karl a little earlier that also gave some more details on that story. Here's how Bernie Sanders talked about how he was actually treated unfairly by the Democratic National Committee, even though some of his staff people, at least one and maybe a couple more, engaged in wrongdoing, but he still thinks he was mistreated, and he explains that over here.
This DNC issue. Do you believe the DNC is treating you fairly?
I think in this instance they did not. On 2 occasions now, Chuck, in the last several months, breaches have occurred as a result of the incompetence of DNC vendors, 2 separate vendors. And then what happened is, our first time, our staff said, hey, we got information from the Clinton campaign. They did the right thing. They went back to the DNC and the vendor. Right. Second time, some of our staff screwed up, and I apologize for that. But to shut off our access to our own information to significantly hinder our campaign was a complete overreaction, and that was absolutely wrong.
But you acknowledge that you had staffers who essentially, if they didn't rob the Hillary Clinton voter file, they certainly took pictures. Hold
on, Chuck, let me just say this. Let's be clear.
Okay.
As a result of a breach caused by the DNC vendor, not by us, information came into our campaign about the Clinton campaign.
Magically?
We didn't go out and take it.
It magically came there, or you had a staffer that got it?
That's what the...
You believe it accidentally came in? Okay. Go ahead.
Well, that's not dispute. There was a breach caused by the incompetence of the DNC vendor. That information came into our campaign. First time it came in, our staff did the right thing. They said, hey, we got information from the Clinton campaign. We don't want this. And they went to the DNC. The second time, a staffer or more, we don't know yet, we're doing that investigation, screwed up. And we have fired that person. Point is that the DNC then proposed, because of the initial screw up on their part, to take away our access to our own information, which significantly hampers our campaign. Fortunately, that has been resolved.
All right. Senator.
So that's the second clip of Senator Bernie Sanders on NBC's Meet the Press, and I thought that was worth showing as a little more explication of the whole data breach issue. And Bernie Sanders also talked about that on ABC's This Week with George Stephanopoulos, but I'm not going to show that question. I am going to show 2 clips of that, although only one of them before I move on to some of the transitional clips. This is a clip about Bernie Sanders' difference with Hillary Clinton on the question of raising middle-class taxes. Hillary Clinton is kind of making a big issue of the fact that she won't raise taxes on anyone making less than $250,000 a year, and Bernie Sanders has said that he will support at least one type of tax cut on to people making less than $250,000 a year. And I didn't take any clips of that back and forth from the debate last night, but here's Bernie Sanders talking about it over on ABC's This Week with George Stephanopoulos in an interview with host George Stephanopoulos over here.
Clinton last night on the issue of taxes. She made a pledge not to raise any taxes on people earning under $250,000. You talked about the tax to pay for the family leave bill. You said it was about $1.61 for a family each week. But that's not it for you, right? How are you going to pay for the rest of your programs?
Good, fair question. We are going to provide free tuition at public colleges and universities by imposing a tax on Wall Street speculation. That tax will pay completely for public tuition at public colleges and universities, and substantially lower interest rates on student debt. We're going to rebuild our crumbling infrastructure through $1 trillion investment to create 13 million jobs by doing away with the loopholes that currently exist, by which corporations can stash their money in the Cayman Islands and Bermuda and not pay in a given year a nickel in federal income taxes. We're going to raise Social Security benefits, expand benefits by lifting the cap on taxable income going into Social Security. So people making $250,000 a year or more will pay the same percentage of their income as people
Still
making
got to pay for health
$50,000.
care.
Pardon me? That will help us. No, that will expand Social Security benefits for people who are trying to live on $12,000 or $13,000 a year. But in terms of this, the United States today is the only major country on earth that doesn't have paid family and medical leave. It's an absolute disgrace. A working class woman has a baby. She may have to go back to work in a week or two because she doesn't have the income. Every other country on earth has paid family and medical leave. I am supporting legislation introduced in the House and the Senate, which has virtually all progressive Democrats on board. It will cost $1.61
But
a
is
week.
that's my question. Is that it? No other tax increases on the middle class?
That's right.
Okay, final question.
So, like I said, I chose that clip from This Week with George Stephanopoulos because I didn't really take clips from the back and forth between Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton on their different tax plans. Even though it's important, sometimes it gets a little boring, and so I chose that fairly brief explication of the differences between Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders, and I think that's a fairly detailed list of the programs where Bernie Sanders might raise taxes that Hillary Clinton has said she won't raise taxes. So, like I said, that's the last clip just on the Democratic side of the presidential race for 2016. But I have a few clips here that are sort of transitional because they're Republicans talking about the Democrats. Or actually, in one case, I have Bernie Sanders talking about Donald Trump's reaction to what Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders said. So it's sort of a reaction to a reaction. But the first two are Donald Trump reacting to what Hillary Clinton said, that ISIS is using video of his comments about Muslims to recruit ISIS members. First, here's how he reacted over on NBC's Meet the Press in this clip.
With last night's Democratic debate, not surprisingly, the only Republican candidate I think that was talked about by name was you. I want to play one particular quote that Hillary Clinton said last night and get you to respond to it. Here it is.
He is becoming ISIS's best recruiter. They are going to people showing videos of Donald Trump insulting Islam and Muslims in order to recruit more radical jihadists.
Now, I know what you're about to say. No fact checker has been able to back up her claim on that.
That's exactly correct. I was going to say that. Exactly correct.
Right.
Nobody has been able to back that up. It's nonsense. It's just another Hillary lie. She lies like crazy about everything, whether it's trips where she was being gunned down in a helicopter or an airplane. She's a liar, and everybody knows that. I mean, but she just made this up in thin air.
But let me ask you this. If you knew your words were being used in recruitment videos, because I've had plenty of intelligence officials worry about this. You're right, there's no evidence yet. But if you knew your words were being used, would you change your language?
No, because I think that my words represent toughness and strength. Hillary's not strong. Hillary's weak, frankly. She's got no stamina. She's got nothing.
Wait, let me stop you there.
She couldn't even get back. She couldn't even get back on the stage. Nobody even knows what happened to her. It's like she went home and went to
Why
sleep.
do you keep going on this?
She couldn't even get back on the stage last night. Well, I'll tell you why. Because we need a president with great strength and great stamina. And Hillary doesn't have that. We cannot have another bad president like we have right now. We need a president with tremendous intelligence, smarts, cunning, strength, and stamina.
There's a lot of things that I've heard about.
So, yeah, of course, Donald Trump turns it into a thing about strength and stamina, which is some of his buzzwords he's trying to use against Hillary Clinton most recently. But I want to show the next clip is from ABC's This Week with George Stephanopoulos, where George Stephanopoulos asked Donald Trump the same question, and I'm not going to show the question and the full answer, but I'm going to just show a little bit of Donald Trump saying how, Hillary Clinton's a liar and Bernie Sanders is a liar, and then George Stephanopoulos asks the logical follow-up, isn't Donald Trump isn't it the pot calling the kettle black to make stuff up? to claim that someone is making stuff up when Donald Trump has made up all this stuff. Most easily cited, which George Stephanopoulos cites in his follow-up question here about how Trump said that the Muslims in New Jersey, thousands of Muslims in New Jersey, celebrated the downing of the World Trade Center, which there has never been any fact-checking. And anyway, here's George Stephanopoulos kind of following up on that same line of questioning from Meet the Press, and Donald Trump still not backing down from any of his false statements here.
Soundbite, just like Bernie Sanders lied. I mean, he went out and said things that never took place. I didn't say that about Mexicans. I have great relationships with the Hispanics, and I didn't say what he said. They make up things in the world of politics. They're all talk and no action. They're politicians.
You sure you want to go? You sure you want to go down that road? The fact checkers have called you out on more false statements than any other candidate.
In advance.
Oh, I'll go down that road, and people maybe call me out, but they turn out to be wrong also. And many of the things I've said, and I think just about all of them, they may have been controversial at one point, George, but they're not controversial in the end because people start to say, Trump's actually right. And you go into illegal immigration, everybody now is coming my way with illegal. I've been 100% right as far as crime is concerned, as far as the economy is concerned. I've been right on more than anybody else has been right by a
you've
big
never
factor.
come up with a video of those thousands of people cheering in New Jersey on 9/11.
Oh, there were plenty of people cheering, believe me, and I've come up with plenty. And the Washington Post wrote a story that they tried to retract, and there were many other stories written, and a lot of people, thousands of people, have been calling and writing and emailing. Many people saw it, and it was in New Jersey, and it was also all over the world, George. So there's an obvious problem, because all over the world, and you're not even disputing that, but people were celebrating all over the world, and I think it's disgusting.
There were people celebrating in the West Bank. There were not people celebrating in New Jersey as far as any evidence we have seen. But I do want to move on.
Of course there were, George.
Right now.
There were articles. George, there were articles written about it. There were people celebrating. And, in fact, if you look at the famous Washington Post article that he tried to retract, there were articles written about it. Don't tell me that. There's no reason to apologize. There were people celebrating. When the World Trade Center was coming down, there were people celebrating, George.
Around the world. Let's move on to Vladimir Putin. You got that praise.
George Stephanopoulos would not quite give up on that. He even ended with, around the world, but we're going to move on to Vladimir Putin. And anyway, like I said, I thought George Stephanopoulos, his follow-up there was kind of the obvious follow-up, the irony of Donald Trump saying that someone else is making up facts that the fact-checkers have proved wrong, since he's pretty much the king of that, although several Republicans are vying for that title, I guess. Hillary Clinton, is not the most honest person in terms of being a politician, and I guess there was something about her saying she was under fire in some Balkans trip, and there was news reports showing that there was no danger at all when she came off this plane in this Balkans trip, and so, but it's nothing compared to what Trump's done. And I want to show Bernie Sanders' reaction to Donald Trump's reaction, including when Donald Trump said Bernie Sanders was the liar. Bernie Sanders does not usually engage in personal attacks, but in this clip you'll see him call Donald Trump a pathological liar, and then it actually goes on to something a little more productive, where Bernie Sanders talks about how to defeat Donald Trump a little bit, and it builds on, I think, some of the things Bernie Sanders talked about in his answer about Donald Trump in the debate last night. This is on ABC this morning, This Week with George Stephanopoulos, this clip.
You just heard Donald Trump call you out. He said you lied. He doubled down on that embrace from Vladimir Putin.
I tell you, it really is rather extraordinary. I think, and I say this straightforwardly, I think you have a pathological liar there.
Pathological?
Pathological, I really do. I mean, I think much of what he says are lies or gross distortions of reality. Here's the fact. I mean, he's been saying over and over again that he saw on television, as I understand it, thousands of people in New Jersey celebrating 9/11, right? The destruction of the Twin Towers. Either that's true or it's not true. From what I understand, there have been a lot of research. They archive what goes on television. You're a TV guy, right? Everything we're saying now is going to be archived. Either it is true, it is not true. Nobody has seen a tape of thousands of people celebrating the destruction of the Twin Towers in New Jersey. It doesn't exist, and he keeps claiming it. That's called pathological lying. Yes, he just a few moments ago accused me of lying. What I said last night is that he has suggested that Mexicans who are coming to this country are criminals and rapists. That is exactly what he said. What somebody like a Donald Trump is doing is playing on the fears and anxieties of the American people. And people are afraid. They're afraid of terrorism, rightfully so. They're anxious about an economy in which the middle class is disappearing. We're seeing massive levels of income and wealth inequality. People are worried about the future for their kids. These are legitimate fears. So instead of having a rational discussion about how we rebuild the middle class, how we deal with Wall Street, how we have a tax system in which the wealthy and powerful start paying their fair share of taxes, what Trump is saying is it's all the Muslims' fault. It's all the Mexicans' fault.
How do you explain why that's doing so well right now?
Because it's an easy solution. How do we rebuild the middle class? Well, you're going to have to stand up to corporate America. You're going to have to stand up to Wall Street. You're going to have to create millions of decent-paying jobs by rebuilding our infrastructure. You're going to have to provide health care to all people, et cetera, et cetera. But what Trump says, and this is new, this is what demagogues all over the world historically have done. They say, are you nervous? Are you scared? Are you frightened for the future? I'll tell you the reason. It's the Muslims. All those Muslims out there are terrorists. We have to stop them coming into this country. It's the Mexicans. It's the immigrants who are coming in. They're all rapists and criminals. Oh, okay. Now I'm angry. We're going to take it out on them. Meanwhile, this same Trump says the minimum wage in America, which is $7.25 an hour, he says it's good that we have a low minimum wage. This guy Trump is saying we need to give hundreds of billions of dollars in tax breaks to the top 0.3%, the very richest people in this country.
How do you defeat that?
You defeat it by going out to the working people in this country and making it clear that if we are going to create an economy that works for our kids, that works for working families, we have got to do it together. We have to understand the real causes, and the real causes are the greed of corporate America, the greed of Wall Street, not some poor Mexican who is in this country trying to live on $7 an hour.
I want to ask you about that moment we showed.
So you can see there Bernie Sanders kind of built on his answer in the debate last night about how to fight Donald Trump through making people conscious of the way they're being screwed by class and not use racial and ethnic resentments to obfuscate the way that people are being screwed by the rich. I mean, that's a pretty good argument, I think, and I thought he even went further than he did last night at the beginning of that answer when he actually called Trump a pathological liar. I don't know, is it pathological or is it crazy like a fox? Is he like actually doing what he needs to do to win the Republican primary, and then he's going to get all moderate once he's the Republican nominee? I don't know. I think that may actually be a possibility, but I want to show a couple clips of Donald Trump. This is still in the transitional clips because this is Donald Trump, like I said, talking about how he would fight ISIS and Assad, and this is from Chuck Todd on NBC's Meet the Press, where Chuck Todd points out that his policy is very close to what Bernie Sanders was saying about leave Assad alone and fight ISIS. And I'll discuss that a little more after you watch that clip over here.
Do you stick by the idea that the Middle East would be more stable today with Saddam Hussein and Gaddafi in power?
100%, 100%. There's not even is there even a doubt in your mind? And you wouldn't have the migration, and you wouldn't have people coming over to this country that we have no idea who they are. And if I win, they're going to have to go back because we have no idea who they are.
And if you become president,
100%.
do you let Assad? Do you let Assad stay? Do you let Assad stay?
Well, you can't fight Assad and ISIS at the same time. You have to fight ISIS first. And I don't say Assad is good.
That's exactly what Bernie Sanders believes, by the way. You and Bernie Sanders are in line on this.
And I agree with him on that. It's okay to agree. Look, he's a guy, I don't agree with him on much, but if he says that, I'm okay with it. Let me just tell you, you can't fight them both at the same time. And I say Assad's a bad guy, but we don't know who the rebels are that are fighting. Every time we get involved with rebels, take a look at Libya. Take a look at all these rebels. Look what they did to our ambassador and those young men, those wonderful young men. Every time we get involved in Benghazi, I'm talking about, every time we get involved with rebels, the rebels, they call them the freedom rebels, always nice names, it ends up being far worse than the people that were there in the first place. So Assad is not a good guy, but the people that we're backing, a lot of people think they're ISIS, that we're actually backing ISIS. So what are we doing? We have to get rid of ISIS first. Assad we think about later on.
Let me ask you to respond to.
So that's Donald Trump ending up agreeing with Bernie Sanders on that it's better to leave dictators in power than destabilize the Middle East, and it's better to leave Assad in power while we fight ISIS. And Chuck Todd pointed out in that question. And then the next clip I want to show, and I think this is the last transitional clip between the Democrats and the Republicans. Is that right? Oh, no, there's one more transitional clip from CBS's Face the Nation because it has poll results from both sides. But this is the last clip of Donald Trump talking about the Democrats. And this is Donald Trump talking about something he's been saying lately, that Hillary Clinton is responsible for thousands of deaths. And I start off the clip with Donald Trump using that talking point that he's used several times, and then Chuck Todd asking him to explain what it means, and I'm not sure it really makes sense, but you can tell me what you think after you watch that clip over here.
She wasted a lot of lives because her policies were a disaster for the world. The Middle East has blown up around her. Her decisions were horrible, and hundreds of thousands of people have been killed because of her faulty decisions.
I've heard you say that we're hundreds of thousands of people. That is where?
Of course.
What is this charge?
How about Libya? How about all the bad decisions made? But how about Libya? How about what's going on right now with the migration, which essentially was caused by her faulty decisions, along with her president, her leader, our great president, who is grossly incompetent. How about now, you look at our president, how about the Iran deal, one of the worst deals I've ever seen negotiated in my life, Chuck? I mean, it's just bad deal, bad decision, after bad deal, after bad decision.
Why are you so comfortable?
I don't know. I didn't hear any substance to that. Hundreds of thousands of deaths that are the responsibility of Hillary Clinton. It didn't make sense to me. I don't know. You can let me know what you think down in the comment section. Like I said, that's the last transitional clip. Now I'm going to move on to, I think, 8 clips that are completely on the topic of the Republican side of the 2016 presidential... Oh, wait. No, that's not even right. I have one more transitional clip. Like I said, it's from CBS's Face the Nation because it talks about, it briefly talks about the Democratic side of the polls where Bernie Sanders is beating Hillary Clinton in New Hampshire, and then it has much more extensive polling on what's going on between the Republicans both in Iowa and New Hampshire over in this clip.
I'm John Dickerson. Democrats held a spirited debate last night in New Hampshire and sparred on the issues of Wall Street reform, foreign policy, and health care. Our new CBS News Battleground Tracker shows that Hillary Clinton is 14 points behind Bernie Sanders in the state of New Hampshire. On the Republican side, it's Donald Trump who's on top with 32%. Ted Cruz follows with 14, Marco Rubio at 13, and Christie has moved up into 4th place with 11% support. The rest of the field is in single digits. Turning to Iowa, it's Senator Ted Cruz who's taken the lead with 40% support. Donald Trump is at 31, Marco Rubio is at 12, and Ben Carson has plummeted down to 6%. The rest of the field is at 2% or below. Friday, we traveled to Iowa.
So, like I said, that's the CBS poll that both showed Bernie Sanders beating Hillary Clinton in New Hampshire, and then had Ted Cruz winning in the Republicans in New Hampshire. Ted Cruz winning in Iowa, but Donald Trump winning in New Hampshire. Christie's actually not doing so not doing that badly in New Hampshire, and I'm going to show a clip of Christie interview in just a minute. But the next clip I want to show, like I said, so now I'm moving on to just the topic of the Republican side of the 2016 presidential race. And the first clip I want to show is actually from CNN State of the Union. It's the very beginning of the show where Jake Tapper says what the State of the Union is, and this week, I think he's used this phrase once before. The State of the Union is ready to rumble, and it is actually a reference to the Republican debate last Tuesday, and he talks about the fight between Jeb and Donald Trump, or Jeb Bush and Donald Trump, and there's also some poll results that show Trump is winning, but then losing to Hillary, as I'll discuss after you watch that clip over here.
Hello, I'm Jake Tapper in Washington, D.C., where the state of our union is ready to rumble. A new war of words between Republican frontrunner Donald Trump and rival Jeb Bush. Trump called Bush dumb as a rock on Twitter this weekend. And take a listen to Governor Bush on the campaign trail yesterday.
I got to get this off my chest. Donald Trump is a jerk.
Thank you.
I feel better now. I gave myself therapy there.
Therapeutic perhaps, but it does not seem to be moving the needle much on the polls, which show Donald Trump with a commanding lead after Tuesday's debate. A new Fox News poll showing Trump leading nationally with 39%. His closest competitor is Senator Ted Cruz at 18%. But it's not all good news for Trump, who loses to Hillary Clinton by 11 points in a theoretical head-to-head matchup in the same poll. Last night at the Democratic debate, Clinton disparaged Trump's plan to ban Muslims from entering the U.S., and then she gave her Republican opponent some new fodder by painting a rosy scenario about the war against ISIS.
No, we now finally are where we need to be. We have a strategy and a commitment to go after ISIS, which is a danger to us as well as the region.
Joining me now, Republican President.
Oh, sorry, I'll have a clip of that a little bit later, but the next clip I want to show on the Republican side of the 2016 presidential race is back over from Chuck Todd on NBC's Meet the Press. Here he talks about how Trump and also Ted Cruz are kind of breaking the political rules, but then also in this clip you'll also see Chuck Todd talk about it's Cruz who is playing by the rules. It's Donald Trump and Marco Rubio who are breaking the old rules of politics for Iowa and New Hampshire, and I'll discuss that a little more if you watch that clip here.
Said that all politics is local. Donald Trump has a different idea. He's betting that all politics is national. This week, Trump dominated the national polls again, and in fact, as never before, topping the second-place finisher, no matter what poll you use, Ted Cruz, in each case by more than 20 points. Tradition would tell you that national polls at this stage are meaningless. Just ask Presidents Giuliani and Herman Cain. But Donald Trump and now Marco Rubio are throwing out the old rule book that says you have to win Iowa or New Hampshire before building a national campaign. Trump, who will join me in just a moment, wants to rewrite that rule book. The question is, can he rewrite history?
And the only one I'm not leading in is a stupid Des Moines Register. What a...
Donald Trump is drawing thousands to rallies with a whistle-stop strategy, often parking his Boeing 757 within view of the stage. He's ignoring the kind of face-to-face retail politics that have been the political playbook for decades. Trump has held just 32 public events in Iowa this year. His biggest threat there, Ted Cruz, has held 75. And in New Hampshire, Trump has made just 22 stops, compared to Jeb Bush's 66 and Chris Christie's 111. And those candidates dismiss the fact that they're lagging nationally.
This time, 8 years ago, Hillary Clinton was 25 points ahead of Barack Obama. I don't remember people saying, Obama, you got to get out of the race.
True, but we've never seen someone like Trump. He is saturating social media.
I'm the Ernest Hemingway of 140 characters. Can you believe that?
And he's dominating cable news. On Fox News, a traditional home for Republican primary voters, Trump has gotten nearly 8 times as many mentions as Cruz over the past month. Marco Rubio is following a similar strategy. In Iowa, he's chosen to invest in television ads over staffers and field offices. And he's been criticized for a light campaign schedule, just 48 stops this year.
You haven't been in Iowa nearly as much as, for example, Ted Cruz.
I read that. That's just not true.
It's true.
Meanwhile, Ted Cruz is betting on a traditional campaign playbook. rolling out Iowa endorsements and opening a dormitory in Des Moines, nicknamed Camp Cruz, for volunteers from out of state.
Let's go, Cruz Crew. We got 3 minutes.
Cruz and Rubio are already in an all-out brawl, competing to be the leading alternative to Trump.
Marco's campaign is lying.
He's not told the truth about his position in the past.
Rubio's sponsorship of the Senate 2013 immigration reform bill was met with hostility by many conservatives. But Rubio insists Cruz just won't admit that he backed the reform, too.
He supported an amendment in the U.S. Senate when we were debating the immigration bill, where he flat out bragged about the fact that he wasn't undoing the legalization.
Rubio is trying to expose Cruz as just another slippery Washington politician. But Cruz is having none of that, attacking Rubio on the air.
The Republican establishment's Gang of 8 amnesty plan.
Back in 2013, Cruz said this.
What would you do with the 11 million people who are here illegally?
I think there probably could be a compromise on that.
A compromise?
If a path to citizenship was taken off the table.
But now Cruz is ruling out legal status for undocumented immigrants, now or in the future.
I have never once supported legalization. I do not now, and I will never support it.
Well, I'm joined now on the phone by...
So that was the report from NBC's Meet the Press. Chuck Todd there, concentrating at the end there on the feud between Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz almost never comes on these Sunday morning news shows, but Marco Rubio was over on CBS's Face the Nation, and in this next clip, John Dickerson asked him about whether Donald Trump's comments on banning Muslims, he doesn't specifically ask him about what Hillary Clinton said about it being a recruiting tool for ISIS, but he does ask if it's a national security problem, and you'll see Marco Rubio says that ISIS has their own ideology. They don't need help from Donald Trump over here.
And so forth.
How much of a national security issue do you think it is that there is now an open conversation in the Republican Party about banning Muslims from America, and that a majority of the party agrees with that idea? Right now, do you think that's a national security problem?
Well, the statements that people have made, it's not a serious policy proposal. And so it was made for the purposes of recapturing the headlines. I mean, Donald Trump had fallen out of the headlines, rightfully, because we had the largest terrorist attack in American history since 9/11. He wanted to get back in the headlines, and he came up with something spectacular and outrageous so that people would respond to it, and he could recapture the headlines. It's not a serious proposal. Ultimately, I think that all of this will pass, and it will be the rhetoric and the policies of the next president that will determine whether we are safer or not.
Because I was interested, Chairman Burr, Senate Intelligence Chairman, said it actually does have a real danger right now. It can be used as a recruitment tool from terrorists, and also what do Muslims feel like who live in the United States, that it might alienate them, which, as you know, is the precursor for potential...
Well, ISIS, the primary recruitment tool that ISIS uses is that they are recruiting people to join their apocalyptic cause that's going to have this final showdown in the city of Dabiq against the West, and it's going to trigger this new era in world history. The second point is a valid one. We will need cooperation and work alongside the Americans, Muslim Americans in this country to identify areas where people are being radicalized or things they may see in their community. We are going to need to work with them, and most certainly there are very patriotic Muslim Americans who love this country and would love to share information with us to prevent these attacks. And so to the extent that rhetoric could prevent people from doing that or make them resistant to cooperating with law enforcement and intelligence agencies, that's problematic, of course.
Another debate.
Now, that actually wasn't that bad an answer from Senator Marco Rubio. He did show some depth of knowledge about ISIS and its ideology, which is definitely in contrast to Donald Trump, who, knows like a few catchphrases and talking points, but there's like not a lot of depth underneath the superficial slogans that he generally uses. And the problem with Marco Rubio is that he has to break the political rules, as Chuck Todd was showing in that previous clip, because there's not really a way for him to win either Iowa or New Hampshire. And traditionally, to be the Republican nominee, you have to win either Iowa or New Hampshire. The next clip I want to show, and I don't know, maybe Marco Rubio will be a surprise in one of those states, or maybe he'll find some different way, but someone who is actually doing better in New Hampshire, and you'll see George Stephanopoulos mentions that in the introduction to this clip, is New Jersey Governor Christie. I mean, he's still not looking like he's going to win it, but who knows what's going to happen in the next couple months when, things can shift around, and he is the kind of candidate that New Hampshire Republicans and independents might decide to vote for. And here he is talking about the dishonesty of Donald Trump, first about Muslims celebrating in New Jersey since he's governor of New Jersey, and then he also talks about the possibility of World War III and how Hillary is even worse than Trump, believe it or not, over in this clip.
Here live in New Hampshire, joining us now, Governor Christie. You've been on a move now here in New Hampshire, moving up in the polls. We got a lot to talk about. I got to begin, though, and I know it's not your favorite subject, but I got to begin with Donald Trump. You heard Bernie Sanders call him a pathological liar. Your response to what he said this morning?
Well, listen, there was a lot that he said this morning. I would just say this. One, I was in New Jersey on September 11th, and thousands of people simply were not celebrating in Jersey City. The former state attorney general, who was closely watching this, a Republican, back in 2001, said it's not true, so we know that's not true. Secondly, on Putin, I'll just say the same thing I said yesterday. I wouldn't want the endorsement. I wouldn't want it. So if he's happy with it, that's fine.
But you've also said that we're already in World War III. You said what are the implications of that right now? And you've also said that if Donald Trump gets the nomination, you're comfortable with him as commander-in-chief. Are you really comfortable with him as commander-in-chief in a World War III situation?
More comfortable than with Hillary Clinton, because she's the one who's got us into the World War III situation with Barack Obama. I mean, think about it. She said last night, we're finally where we need to be on ISIS.
We're not.
Oh, my gosh. With dead bodies in Paris, with dead bodies in San Bernardino, and with no plan from this administration about how to deal with it, we're finally where we need to be. I mean, Mrs. Clinton is Mrs. Happy Talk. And she just wants to happy talk her way to the presidency. She is the personification of this administration. Are you going to believe me or your lying eyes? I mean, so, the fact is that that's not where we need to be.
She's called for no.
So you see how Christie did what he also did in the debate. If you watched my debate clip roundup last Wednesday of the Tuesday debate, he did this thing where he switched from an attack on one of his opponents in the primaries to an attack on Hillary Clinton, which I think is actually a pretty effective tactic because you don't get that many points for attacking another Republican. You get a lot more points from the electorate, the Republican electorate, by attacking Hillary Clinton, which is why Hillary Clinton is often a topic of the Republican debates and Donald Trump is often a topic of the Democratic debates. And you notice how Christie also picked up that Fox News talking point about Hillary Clinton saying we are where we need to be in the fight against ISIS, which, as I showed earlier, was kind of taken out of context, but it seems to be the big Fox News talking point, the Republican candidate talking point. But the next clip I want to show is not on that topic, but is on the topic of Donald Trump again. But this is Jeb Bush, who's trying to ignite his campaign, maybe get some traction in New Hampshire also, and has even less of a chance at this point, I think, than Christie. But who knows? Stranger things have happened. Where this is talking to John Dickerson on CBS's Face the Nation, where John Dickerson points out that when Jeb Bush says Donald Trump can insult his way to the presidency, that he's also been insulting Donald Trump, recently calling him a jerk. And here's Jeb Bush's response talking about Donald Trump over here.
Yesterday, Governor Bush, you in a rally here in New Hampshire said that Donald Trump is a jerk. You said he's a chaos candidate. You said he's not serious and he can't insult his way to the presidency. But aren't those all insults? Are you trying to insult your way to the presidency?
No, I'm trying to point out that he's not a serious candidate. His answer about the nuclear triad, for example, was mind-blowing. I mean, not having any knowledge about what the subject is, where you have this exclusive responsibility of the President of the United States as Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces to know when and how to use our nuclear deterrent. I mean, he has no knowledge about this stuff. He thought he now has come out saying that Putin is a strong man and a great guy when he's trying to destabilize our relationship with our allies. He's not a serious candidate.
Why is the nuclear triad so important for people who don't understand what that is in a world of where Islamic Jihad is something people are so concerned about?
It's important because it's been part of the security arrangement that has kept us safe since the post-World War II era. And we've seen a lack of investment in it, and we've seen, we need to refurbish it and strengthen it. And the fact that he wouldn't know what it is kind of, that's one of those questions that I think you have to answer in a thoughtful way if you're running for President of the United States. But it's not just that. I mean, he said that ISIS is not a threat. 2 months ago, he gets his news from the shows. I know that warms your heart, that he wakes up in the morning and gets his foreign policy and military advice from people that go on your show, but that's not a serious man. And I don't take, look, when he insults me personally, I don't take it personally, and he shouldn't take it personally either, but someone needs to call him out.
One of his policies that he's put forward is this idea of banning Muslims from the United States. You said that was he was unhinged when he offered that, but there is support, majority support, the polls show, in the Republican Party. So what does it say about those voters who are appealed to by that policy?
Well, it says a lot about Donald Trump that he would say these things knowing that it might have popular support. But that will wane when people realize that will make it harder for us to do what we need to do, which is to destroy ISIS. You can't do it by banning Muslims into our country. That's just ridiculous. But look, people are scared, and when they hear someone that advocates a big position, I could see why people would be migrate towards that, but that doesn't mean it's the right thing to do.
I think Jeb Bush might have done better in the Republican primaries if he had latched onto some talking points that, been cut down to size. I think the first clip I showed in the broadcast, from the parody of the Republican debate on Saturday Night Live, pretty much sums up the way Jeb Bush is viewed by a lot of the electorate. That he just has not proven himself. He has been, ridiculed by Donald Trump mercilessly. I don't know why Donald Trump hates Jeb Bush so much, but even he spent a lot of time targeting him, even though he's not his main challenger. Jeb Bush is way down in the polls. And anyway, I thought I would show that clip just as one clip from Jeb Bush, and this next clip is also one clip from a candidate who doesn't really seem to have much of a chance anymore, who I talked about a lot like a year ago when I was doing this program as someone who might be the new face of the Republican Party. Still a long shot back then, but I'm talking about Senator Rand Paul as like the libertarian side and the more non-interventionist side of the Republican Party, which doesn't seem to be getting a lot of traction since terrorism is the main issue that they've been harping on over and over again. But here's Senator Rand Paul also talking about Donald Trump. Let me make sure I get this right. He's talking to about how Donald Trump is actually not that conservative and how he's a real conservative over in this clip.
Let's talk about some of the politics from this weekend. Jeb Bush saying Donald Trump was a jerk for disparaging women, Hispanics, disabled people. That's a quote. Jeb says it's deeply discouraging that Trump remains the front runner. Do you agree?
Absolutely deeply disturbing that he's the front runner. I think he'll get wiped out in a general election. It'd be terrible for any of the ideas of limited government. I'm still not sure that Donald Trump is for limited government or balanced budgets. One of the biggest things that he's been for in his last several years is using eminent domain for the government to take private property from one private property owner and give it to himself for his casinos and parking lots. That's not a conservative notion, and really most of Donald Trump is nothing more than sort of bits of populism, but no consistent conservative philosophy.
Back in July, you told me that you thought Donald Trump's popularity represented a, quote, temporary loss of sanity, I guess, among voters. You said the party would come back to its senses. It's now 5 days before Christmas. Trump is as strong as ever. Is it a temporary loss of sanity, or do you think that the problem might be more permanent?
I think that we've all let the polls consume us too much. I don't think the polls are very accurate. In Kentucky, a week before the governor's race, the polls were off by 13 points. That's when they're supposed to be accurate. I think we have sort of American Idol type of polls right now where one candidate's getting an enormous amount of time on TV, and people are saying, oh, yeah, I might vote for him. Well, these people don't get out and vote. About 10% of Republicans will vote in Iowa, so you can be wildly off. And I guess what disappoints some of us who aren't as high in the polls is that if we skew all the coverage towards the polls, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. So I think we need to examine other things and try to distribute the coverage a little better so we could have maybe a chance of getting a better president.
As you know, Senator Paul, we put you on TV all the time, so I know that that's not aimed at
not complaining about CNN.
Listen to I want you to take a listen to Donald Trump's spokeswoman talking about the nuclear triad this week.
What good does it do to have a good nuclear triad if you're afraid to use it?
The subject of the nuclear triad, it was raised at the debate, and after the debate, Jeb Bush told me on air that he didn't think Trump understood what the nuclear triad was. What do you make of what you're hearing from the Trump team on this issue?
Well, this is the worrisome thing. During the debate, absolutely, Donald Trump had no clue what the nuclear triad is, and he'd been asked the question previously by Hugh Hewitt on the radio and had no idea what it was. And so now that they've discovered what it is, they're ready to use it. No, I think this is what is very worrisome about not only Trump, but Christie and others on the stage who are really eager to have war, really eager to show how strong they are. And that gets away from the tradition we have of trying to limit power, trying to be reluctant to go to war. And it also gets to temperament. And that's why it very much worries me to have someone like Donald Trump or Chris Christie in charge of our nuclear arsenal.
On Monday.
Well, I'm glad Senator Rand Paul's worried. I'm also worried about Donald Trump, although the chance of him winning the presidency is still fairly low, I'm hoping. Although the chances of him winning the Republican nomination seems to be growing every week. I'm actually done showing clips of the Republican candidates. I have 2 more clips. So these last 2 clips, like I said, aren't the candidates, but they are Republicans. And so they kind of fit in the Republican category. They're the Republican leader of the House of Representatives and the U.S. Senate, the majority leader of the Senate, Mitch McConnell, and the Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan. And they're both reacting to the way that the presidential race is showing that the Republican Party, the base of the Republican Party, basically hates the establishment, hates what they're doing, anything they get done, what little Congress gets done. And they did just get some things done with this omnibus spending and some other accomplishments. And Paul Ryan will actually talk about that in the second clip. But first I'm going to go to the senior senator from Kentucky after showing Rand Paul, who's the junior senator from Kentucky, and Mitch McConnell, the senior senator from Kentucky, who's the Senate Majority Leader, has actually endorsed Rand Paul. I don't know if that was some sort of deal from the Senate race last year, where Mitch McConnell actually had a fairly strong Democratic challenger. There was some chance that he might lose, so maybe he needed Rand Paul's endorsement, so he swapped it for endorsing Rand Paul in the presidential race. But you'll see Mitch McConnell just does not take the bait to, this is over on CNN State of the Union also. That last clip of Rand Paul was from CNN State of the Union. And Jake Tapper really tries to get Mitch McConnell to take the bait and say something negative about Ted Cruz, who's called Mitch McConnell a liar. And there's even some clips of Ted Cruz in the introduction to this question to Mitch McConnell, but Mitch McConnell does not take the bait, as you can see, and I will discuss after you watch that clip here.
I'm Jake Tapper. Tea Party hero Ted Cruz is now leading the Republican race in Iowa, according to some polls. The first-term Texas senator gained attention and the ire of some Republicans with his floor speeches bashing Republican Party insiders. But he ratcheted up tensions even further when he called Republican Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell a liar.
What we just saw today was an absolute demonstration that not only what he told every Republican senator, but what he told the press over and over and over again, was a simple lie.
Becomes the Republican nominee, life inside the Senate chamber could get a little bit awkward. Joining me now from Kentucky is the Senate Majority Leader, Mitch McConnell, who has endorsed his fellow Kentuckian in the race for President, Rand Paul. Leader McConnell, thanks so much for joining us. I want to get to the accomplishments of the Senate in a second, but I do have to ask you, Senator Cruz has been campaigning against you and what he calls the Washington cartel, very critical of your leadership. What do you think of his leadership?
Well, look, I've made it a point to stay out of the presidential race. It's pretty much dominating the news, as we've noticed by the program this morning. What I want to do is concentrate on what we've done for the American people. The Senate is back to work. We're voting again, passing budgets again, major education, highways, cybersecurity, trade promotion authority. This has been an extraordinarily accomplished first year of the new Senate majority. And what I've tried to do, Jake, is just kind of tune out the presidential race and do the job that the American people elected the new majority to do.
Well, that's fair enough, and I certainly understand that, but there are so many outsiders winning and doing well in the Republican contest, campaigning against Republicans like yourself. Does that bother you? Is there a message you would like to tell those Republican voters who are excited to vote against you in some ways?
Look, we were elected to try to do the job for the American people. We know we have divided government. There are plenty of things we disagree with the president on. But I just issued a few moments ago a litany of things that we've done this year where there are enough bipartisan support to make some progress for the American people. Look, we've had an election every 2 years right on schedule since 1788. You can always say we can't do anything. It's either an election next year or an election this year. We'd never make any progress if we took that approach. So I looked for things to schedule in the Senate that had bipartisan support, that were not terribly contentious from a Republicans versus Democrats point of view, and to make some progress for the country. Now, we do have some pretty darn big differences with the president. We're in the process of putting Obamacare repeal on his desk. We've already put on his desk, through the Congressional Review Act, efforts to repeal some of his onerous regulations on existing power plants and new power plants, and this ridiculous regulation called Waters of the U.S. that would declare virtually every puddle in America subject to EPA regulation. So the things that we differ on, we will talk about, but we want to make some progress in the meantime.
Let's talk about one of your...
So that's the Republican establishment as represented by the Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. And you, as you saw there, Mitch McConnell really didn't take the bait, didn't really respond to the possibility of a President Ted Cruz who had once called him a liar. Like I said, the other clip I want to show on this same topic is from the Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan, who was over on NBC's Meet the Press. You'll see Chuck Todd asks him a fairly similar question, not on Ted Cruz, but on the way conservatives like talk radio host Mark Levin and other conservatives have attacked Paul Ryan for his agreement with President Obama on the omnibus spending plan, where, you know, apparently Democrats won more than Republicans. And here's Paul, and Paul Ryan had previously said negative things about omnibus spending bills. And here's that exchange between Chuck Todd and Speaker of the House Paul Ryan from Meet the Press this morning here.
It would be an understatement to say there is conservative anger over the budget deal agreed to by the new Speaker Paul Ryan. Just take a look at this headline from the Washington Times. White House declares total victory over GOP in budget battle. Needless to say, conservatives are unhappy that Planned Parenthood and the Affordable Care Act are funded, that there are no restrictions on Syrian and Iraqi refugees, and that there are no measures blocking President Obama's efforts to fight climate change. Speaker Ryan has heard the criticism. I sat down with him on Friday, and he said he'd deal with Planned Parenthood in the new year, and that conservatives need to accept that he had to make compromises to get a deal done.
Let me first say, this is divided government. And in divided government, you don't get everything you want. So we fought for as much as we could get. We advanced our priorities and principles, not every single one of them, but many of them. And then we're going to pick up next year and pick up where we left off and keep going for more.
I want to try to get through this interview without using the word omnibus. However, you one time...
You just said it.
I know, because you one time said omnibus equals a crap sandwich when you were a member, not speaker. Now that you're speaker, do you think member Paul Ryan was a little naive?
Everybody knows that I walked into the speakership 7 weeks ago with this process already in place, with this cake already baked. And so what I did is I went to work to make the best of this process, to get some good wins for conservatives, like lifting the oil export ban for the first time in 40 years, getting permanency on tax policy, getting some good riders, limiting the IRS so that the IRS can't meddle in politics, making sure that we get more pro-life riders. So those are some wins we did get. But the point I would say is, this is a process I inherited. I fully own that. But it's also a process that will help us get to what we call regular order next year, where we don't wind up with the same kind of situation next year. That is my hope and that is my goal.
What does it say, though? So Mark Levin says they betrayed you, referring to you. They betrayed your children and grandchildren. Laura Ingraham, omnibus. Marco Rubio's to Jeb Bush as Paul Ryan is to John Boehner. That is not meant as a compliment, as you might know. But Harry Reid said this: it's a good product for the American people. So here you have Harry Reid praising you, and all these conservative opinion leaders calling it betrayal.
Look, none of this stuff gets to me. Look, I think the results are what matters. We made good on our promises. We advanced good legislation. And more importantly...
You think this rhetoric's inappropriate?
I don't
Out of line?
I don't really pay attention to it. Look, people know who I am.
Some of your members do.
The members know that I am a movement conservative. They know that I am a doer, not a beer. I want to make sure that we have an agenda that we take to the American people that is rooted in our founding principles. This is what conservatives believe, to give the country a very clear choice. And that's what we're excited and looking forward to in 2016.
So like I said, Speaker of the House Paul Ryan was much more willing to take the bait and to react to some of his critics there, where especially that quote that Chuck Todd dug up about the omnibus spending bill being a crap sandwich, which I like the way Paul Ryan responded to that as saying that it was already baked into the cake when he got there. I don't know if that means it's a crap sandwich cake or what that is all about. But anyway, like I said, that's the last clip I want to show on the Republican side of the 2016 presidential race, even though Speaker of the House Paul Ryan and Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell aren't candidates. They're sort of the Republican establishment that a lot of the Republican candidates are running against this year, and that's kind of the weird thing about the Republican field, that the people who are running against Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan are the ones who are being most successful. And so I wanted to show those last two clips as relevant, but not candidates, but still relevant to the 2016 presidential campaign. And I have one real quick clip I wanted to end with. I started with the Saturday Night Live clip, and I want to end with a quick Saturday Night Live clip because this is the last of the official political comedy until January 15th, 16th. So it will be the January 17th LiberalViewer Sunday Live Clip Roundup, because that's when Bill Maher comes back and Saturday Night Live comes back. There'll be some repeat Saturday Night Lives, but although I think next week on Face the Nation I saw Stephen Colbert will be a guest, so maybe I'll find a little political comedy next week from Stephen Colbert on Face the Nation. But to end tonight's show, I want to show a weekend update clip. Colin Jost was over on Weekend Update last night. They actually had Tina Fey and Amy Poehler. They did their last jokes, but they weren't that political. And I was actually a little disappointed because I think Amy Poehler and Tina Fey, when they were on the show, it was a lot funnier. And I guess coming back as hosts, they didn't really add that much. I thought the cold open where they parodied the Republican debate was pretty funny, but and then this is a joke I just had to show because it references Fox News and Bill Maher, which are two topics that I spend a lot of time talking about, or two subjects I should say, and it shows a kind of similarity between Bill Maher and Bill O'Reilly that I hadn't heard about. Although I have been noticing that Bill Maher is saying things about Muslims that sounds a lot like some of the things I hear from Republicans and people on Fox News. I hope he's not going to end up pulling a full Dennis Miller on me or something. But anyway, here's a similarity between Bill Maher and Bill O'Reilly from last night's Saturday Night Live Weekend Update to finish the program tonight here.
The PBS series Finding Your Roots has discovered that Bill Maher and Bill O'Reilly are actually distant cousins, having descended from the same ancestor, a screaming potato.
I don't know, was that anti-Irish ethnic bigotry from Colin Jost? I don't know, is Colin Jost... I don't know what ethnicity Colin Jost is, but Bill O'Reilly and Bill Maher are both Irish, or Bill Maher's half Irish at least, so it's not that surprising. They might be distant relatives, but it wasn't really that funny, the potato joke, but I thought I would end the show just because it was a Bill Maher Fox News reference, and those are, like I said, two of my most frequent topics on my on the videos I upload and my live shows. I appreciate those of you who join me during the live show. I got over 200 people, and I've been trying to save your comments along the way. Hopefully I'll be able to post those on the public Patreon page and my clip note list, which I didn't get posted during the live show. If you want to help support my show through 2016, through the election, there's a link down in the video description to become one of my patrons. I'm getting pretty close to my goal of $400 a month. That would be $100 per each of these shows that I basically spend all day Sunday preparing. Or if you want to donate through the YouTube fan funding, you can hover your mouse right over that corner and a little eye will show up if you live in one of the acceptable countries to be a fan funder, and then you can give me a direct donation that YouTube takes a cut of, and especially if you give a very small donation, it almost all goes to YouTube. I have to warn you about that. But anyway, I appreciate everyone who donates to support the channel. I appreciate those of you who just show up and comment and who share my videos on the internet and give it a thumbs up down in the comment section. All those things help support my channel. So thank you. I hope you are enjoying your holidays, and I will be back next week, hopefully a little bit earlier, a little bit less rushed, and hopefully it'll be a shorter show. There won't be any big news events and probably not that many guests on the Sunday 2 days after Christmas. And by the time I see you next Sunday, I will have seen Star Wars The Force Awakens, as I said, so maybe I won't give any spoilers, I promise, and maybe I'll even have time to make a video or two during the week. I can't promise that, but I made a 2 or 3 during this last week, so who knows. Anyway, until next week, or until I make another one of those videos, I guess I will be seeing all of you around the internet.